So just yesterday, Nikon released a firmware update for the Nikon Z8 firmware 2.0. So it's a massive update. I'm really impressed that Nikon is pushing out such massive updates for their cameras that have been released for nearly a year now. But today I figured that I'll come out here and I'll try out some of these new features. So I have here right in front of me my Z8, beautiful Singapore Marina Bay in the distance. So I'm going to try out some of the new features. One of the things that I am particularly interested in is the pixel shift mode. So you can see here in the menu, it says here in the help menu, pixel shift shooting. The camera automatically takes the number of shots selected for the number of shots. The resulting raw images can be combined in the computer to create a high resolution picture. Mount the camera on a tripod or otherwise fix it in place before shooting. So basically what it's doing is that it's using eyepiece, the vibration reduction in the camera itself, to shift the sensor slightly, like a pixel to the left, right, up, down, depending on what your settings is, to create a high resolution image, almost like a panoramic shot in a way. So what this does is that besides giving you far too many megapixels than you need, it's also going to create, an image with less noise and more color detail. So I'm not sure how true that is or how good that is. So we're gonna grab a few photos and we're gonna take a look at them back when we're editing, and we see whether this feature is something that is going to be useful for us. Alright, so to turn on pixel shift shooting, it's here right in the shooting menu. Scroll all the way to the bottom is the second option from the last. So you're going to go into pixel shift mode. There is on, single photo, or off, and then you can choose the number of shots that pixel shift is going to do. So it goes from 4, 8, 16 to 32. So I'm going to try an 8 shot here. Delay mode, let's put in a 2-second delay so that it will wait 2 seconds before starting the entire process, and I don't want any intervals in between the shots. So the thing to take note for pixel shift shooting is that you want to be shooting as stationary as possible. So your camera has to be on a tripod. So the camera has to be on a tripod, it cannot be moving, and you should be shooting a subject that doesn't move as well. So you can see the water in front of me is moving a little bit, but I think it's going to be fine. It's a long exposure, it's going to blur itself out anyway. Another thing to note is that the platform that I'm currently on actually moves a little bit on the water, so I'm hoping that that's okay. I'm just going to take a few shots and we'll see how it goes. So one thing I noticed is that while doing this, there's actually a countdown. You can see it on the camera display over here. So I'm going to do that again. Pixel shift on, single photo. Alright, you can see there's a number 8, 7, 6, so it's taking those different shots. Alright guys, so right now we are back and we're going to look at the images that we've taken. So ignore the extra images down here. You can see I've already done some editing, but what I'm using here is NX Studio. NX Studio is Nikon's own software, and right now is the only software that we can use to create the merge file from the pixel shift images. So we're gonna look right up here to this icon over here. You can see that there is this big pixel shift merge icon.
which is fantastic. It's so convenient. You click on it and it automatically looks for shots that are taken using pixel shift. It groups them together and you can select which of the images that you want to use to merge. So I'm going to choose the first one right here. And I'm going to make sure that chromatic aberration is turned on. I'm going to create one image from this and I am going to hit start. So after you do that, you can see here that NX Studio has created this new image which is made from the merged files of the 8 photos which were pixel shifted together. And because I only took 8 images, so it's gonna be the same resolution as my standard normal Z8 file. Same resolution, but what I'm really interested in over here is whether it produces an image with better detail, better color rendition than just a regular image without pixel shift technology. You can see here this image is it has the file format NEFX, that is your pixel shifted images. So at this point of time, Adobe Photoshop and Lightroom have released an update so that Lightroom does read this NEFX file. So we can see we have it here already. So I'm gonna go over to my Lightroom. Alright guys, so I am here inside Lightroom and this is the image that's already been imported, and this is the unedited image. So I'm just gonna quickly just do a quick edit. So first thing I love to change is actually the camera profile. I do not like Adobe's own profile, so I like to choose my own. So this is a landscape shot, so I'm gonna go with the camera landscape. And so first thing that I'd like to do is just bring down the exposure a little bit, bring down the highlights, and we're going to increase the shadows. Maybe just bring back the exposure a little bit upwards. Alright, that looks good. A little bit down on the whites. So the thing that I'm concerned about and I'm looking at is this lights over on the building signs itself. I do not want to blow this out. So this is a little blown out, but I feel that it's still pretty good, pretty reasonable. There's another one over here. It looks good, I think. Just gonna increase the exposure a little bit more. Again, be very careful with those highlights. Make sure there's nothing blown out. It's a white sign, so I believe that this is fine. So next we are actually going to increase the clarity. So one thing that I've noticed while applying this edit is that I seem to be able to push clarity higher than usual. So this might be one of the benefits of the pixel shift technology. Like you don't get that grainy effect that you do if you just push clarity with image that's not been pixel shifted. So I'm going to increase the haze just by a little bit. Let's see, that's too much. Let's do a little, okay. Alright, contrast, add a little punch to the image. Hopefully not too much. And I'm really, this slant and the building's not being straight is really affecting me. So just gonna add in a little transform. Auto looks good. Gonna hit the crop tool just to see if it looks good. The lines do look straight. Maybe a little bit this. Alright, and that looks pretty awesome. Maybe add in a little bit of vignetting. Let me just increase the exposure a little bit. It's a little too moody for my taste. Alright, I'm gonna rate this as 2 stars, and I'm going to copy all of the adjustments that I've made so far. I think the image looks fine now, so I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna look for the same image, or one of these images. Alright, so here it is. make sure that there are no edits to it, and right now I'm gonna paste in the exact same edits that I made to the pixel shifted file. So this is the file that has no pixel shift on it. This is the pixel shifted version. Oops, alright. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like right now, these two images, they have the same edits to them, but they look different. So some differences that can be expected. You can see the sky here is a bit smoother. Possibly because, you know, across the time span that we were taking the series of images, the clouds were moving. And whereas the clouds here, this is a single shot, they're not moving, so it looks like there's no movement in the clouds at all. The original image without pixel shift, it looks a little bit saturated, a little bit punchier. I'm not sure why that is the case, but you know, it's really hard to really make out any difference at all. It looks pretty close, pretty similar. I'm not sure whether it's just me, but I do feel like I do slightly prefer the pixel shifted image. I'm not sure whether it's just my mind playing tricks on me, but kind of feel like the colors are a bit too, like the colors are different on the image without pixel shift. It looks a bit unnatural, whereas on the pixel shifted image, it does look good. So that is our first example here with a pixel shifted image. Quite interesting. So there is a little bit of a dust spot right here. Let me just get rid of this. All right. So yeah, it looks pretty much the same. Like it's quite indiscernible whether there's any differences or not besides color itself. So there is one thing about pixel shift that I noticed, which is a negative. And I think this is because when you're doing pixel shift photography, there's not supposed to be any movement in the photo at all. And this being an outdoor scene, there's bound to be some movement. And I'm starting to, you know, I've noticed something weird going on in the sky. And if you look really carefully, you can see that there are some greenish lines out there. It looks a little bit weird. So again, this is the image without pixel shift. You can see it actually looks grainy over here. And over here it's not grainy, but you can see there's this weird green lines. Let's see if I increase the zoom. Right, you can see all these lines, and I suspect that these lines appear because the clouds are moving. You know, if we look at the building itself, like we can't really see any of those lines. I'm not sure. They could be as well over here. So yeah, we are seeing some weird artifacts with the pixel shifted image. It's not there in the image without pixel shift. It's not there, it's definitely not there, but it looks a bit noisier. But with the pixel shifted image, you can see that there's some weird lines going on inside there. So then again, it could just be, you know, it might not be a problem with pixel shift. It might be a problem with the subject because we are shooting something that's not supposed to have any movement in it, but unfortunately we're shooting, you know, we've added some movement to it. So where is the image? Yeah, yeah, let's go back and compare the two again. Again, this is the image without any pixel shift. Look at it, it looks good. The sky is a bit grainy, but it doesn't have any of those weird lines. Whereas for the pixel shifted images, you can see there's this weird lines that's going on. And it's especially clear in the sky. Yeah. So I'm not sure if it's supposed to happen. Like if you compare the two now side by side, you can see that there's no lines here. It looks smoother here, but there are some lines. So this might be due to, like I was saying, a wrong application of pixel shift. But then again, if you look at the image, if you just look at the pixel shifted image, just let me make sure I got the right one. Yeah, the pixel shifted image. If you look at it at a low resolution, or rather the resolution that most of us would view our images in, if you do not pixel peep at all, you actually don't see the lines. So it might be acceptable. In fact, I've went ahead and posted this image on my social media. I don't think anybody noticed it at all. It looks still perfectly usable. But we're going to experiment and we're going to find out more about this in detail. So I think one of the questions that I would like answered is that, do we really need pixel shift technology to create such high megapixel images? The Nikon Z is already capable of producing images of up to 45.7 megapixels. And with pixel shift, we can create images that's up to 180 megapixels. Given the fact that most of our images are shown online and in relatively low resolution, is there really a need for such high resolution, such high megapixels? So last year I was given the opportunity to showcase some of my images that were printed out in about a 4 or 5-story stairwell at Singapore's Bugis MRT station. So my photos pretty much filled up the entire side of the wall there. It was about 4 to 5 stories high, and there was very limited space in that stairwell and escalator area. So I wanted to produce something that's very, very high resolution, so that even though it's printed out huge, you know, a few stories high, but it also looks good. You get good detail even if the viewer is standing very, very close to the print itself. And I was able to do so using my existing images with Adobe's super resolution function, which is already available in Photoshop in Lightroom. So given that we have tools like that already on hand, you know, is pixel shift really something useful? So I decided to really put pixel shift photography to the test. If I really want to see whether this feature is something that is useful for my photography, it's got to be able to handle the situations which I normally shoot in. So I'm going to do like a really long exposure, and there's going to be moving elements in the frame, and we're just going to see how it all works out. And I think the results are going to be quite interesting. Alright guys, we are back, and we're just going to quickly look at some of the images that we've taken. This time these are 32 image pixel shift images, and once again we click on pixel shift merge, and so helpfully, you know, it generates up this list, and then it lets me know, hey, these are the pixel shifted images. And I've already went ahead and did all of that, so we don't have to sit through that again. And I've created the pixel shifted images and imported them into Lightroom. So over here, so the settings for this first image that we're going to look at is taken at 1/3 of a second, f11, 14mm ISO 500. So this is gonna be a huge file. So look at the resolution of this, 16,000 by 11,000 pixels. That is a lot. And so this image is gonna be huge. And you can see that there's some, you know, because it's stacked 32 images. Each image is a third of a second, so the whole process would have took, I don't know, a few minutes. So you can see we really got some really good cloud movement over here, and we can see that pixel shift really doesn't like movement. You can see that there's a little bit of blurry figures, which is to be expected for any long exposure shot. But what I really want to point out here is this weird artifacts that we're having, these blue and green lines again that appear, and notice that they specifically appear where there is people or movement. You can see here where somebody's head was moving earlier. You can see that, you know, there's some weird things happening with the pixel now. It's so obvious over here. Over here as well, you can see this doesn't really work out. I mean, we can always correct this in Photoshop. You can just remove all these people altogether, but it's interesting to see the effect that you get when you try to pixel shift a scene where there are moving elements. And if you look closely at the clouds, let me bring down exposure so you can actually see. You can see that parts of it look fine, parts of it, same thing, you get the weird green and blue lines. You know, some of it looks okay. I think it's pretty much a very usable image. And then if I want to quickly just edit it, I think this is definitely something that I can use. Just have to be careful about all the moving images. In fact, I really love the amount of detail that we have over here. Let's zoom in to 400%. And yeah, it still looks pretty good. And bear in mind, that's 400% of a really huge, 400% zoom of a really huge image. Oh, you can see here as well, there were boats going by, and this was kind of the effect that we get over here. But all in all, is this image usable? I would say for the most part, yes. Without all the moving elements creating these weird artifacts, I can see some application where pixel shift might be useful, perhaps really just not so much movement. And then the other image that I want to take a look at is this one. So this is very much more interesting because every image in this 32 image stack is 13 seconds exposure. So that is a very long exposure time, and you know, if you don't zoom in, it looks good. Everything looks smooth, but if you look up here in the sky, you can see that there is something very strange going on. Not only do you have those green and blue lines again, but you can see that there's something like, you see these curved lines. Maybe if I can enhance it, it will be easier to see. Yeah, like look at these lines over here. You start to see this weird circular lines that do start appearing. So I think 13 seconds at sunset, we're really pushing the limits of what pixel shift photography can do. As long as you do not have any moving elements, I think it works perfectly. If you do have some moving elements, I think it could still work well to an extent. One thing that I do want to say, even if it doesn't work that well for a landscape with moving elements like this, I really love the amount of detail that we have over here in the buildings. It just looks so beautiful. Like, it looks so sharp. I feel like I'm shooting with not a full frame camera, but maybe like a medium format camera. You can see some of the green and blue lines here, but I mean, if you zoom out and you look at it, it just looks so crisp and clear. So would I shoot a 32 image pixel shift at 13 seconds long exposure? No. You know, it's not gonna work. You're just gonna have so much of all these weird lines appearing. But is pixel shift something that I can apply to certain aspects of my photography, perhaps where I'm not shooting such a long exposure, where there is, you know, clouds, and there's not that much cloud movement, shooting with a faster shutter speed, nobody's moving around the image. I think, yeah, it definitely has its place. So once again, I guess in conclusion, is it a good technology? Is it something that I will use? Yes, but with all things related to photography, you got to know exactly what you're dealing with. You got to know the tools that you have on hand. whether it works for you, whether it works in the particular situation. There is no setting or option in photography that's one size fits all that suits all situations. The camera is a tool. Make sure that you are well familiar with the tools and the settings to produce the best images for your work. And guys, let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you have any thoughts about pixel shift. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts. I'd love to see if you guys have experimented with this function yourselves. And I'll see you guys next time in the next video.